Welcome back. I hope you're all feeling rested and ready to go. My name's James Palmer. I'm an investor with the Blackbird team here in the beautiful Tamaki Makaurau. In the spirit of sharing stories, I am so excited to introduce our next guest. He is perhaps one of the most accomplished operators we have ever had on the Sunrise stage. He's flown all the way from the US to be here with us today, and his name is Jon Gesley. Yeah. Jon was previously the CEO of Xnor.ai, a machine learning and computer vision company that rapidly grew and sold to Apple for $200 million. Before that, he was the founding CEO of Auth0, an absolute rocket ship, which went from 3 to 300 employees in 4 short years and sold to Okta for $6.5 billion. He is a weapon, and we are so stoked to have him on the stage. But we wanted to do something a little bit different with that expertise. So we're welcoming 3 founders up with him to do a live office hours session. We've primed them with 2 simple questions. You have 30 minutes with Jon Gesley. How would you spend that time, and what would you ask him? It's enough from me. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage Jon Gesley, Elise Hilliam from Menuade, Rika Karbanda from Infinity Studio AI, Jared Webb from Blink, and Sam to facilitate. Let's go. Come on.
Kia ora, everybody. Well, thank you again, Jon, for traveling out all the way from Seattle, and that hat looks great on you.
Great hat. Thank you.
So we don't have very long, and so I want us to get sort of straight into it, and I do want this to be as interactive as possible. James, you set me up perfectly, both Jameses, with your intro, because the inspiration for this session is solving problems. We all know that startups are basically all problems all the time. And sometimes the best way of working on problems in your own business is to troubleshoot problems in other people's businesses, and they give you the inspiration or the sort of bolt of lightning to look at your business differently and do something differently. And the reason why I thought it would be great to do this with Jon is that over a bunch of coffees and conversations talking about all different sorts of startups in different industries and business models, I've been really impressed with how he's able to sort of just take a perspective to each and every one of them. And so I wanted to basically give hundreds of founders access to Jon, but instead we're going to do just 3, but hopefully through sharing your problems in your businesses, it'll spark inspiration and compound for people in the audience. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to ask Reka, Elise, and Jared to just give a quick intro to their companies for the benefit of Jon and the audience, and then take turns jumping into like, what is your number 1 problem right now? And you're all company builders up here, so feel free to jump in and offer suggestions as well. Maybe, Reka, are you happy to kick us off?
Sure. I think hearing about caffeine was good. I think probably as all the founders are, highly caffeinated, more caffeine in my veins right now, sleep deprived, but I love it, every moment of it. I'm really enjoying it. Being a founder is such a privilege and lovely to be part of this fucking startup community, which is amazing. About our company, not many people know, we're changing civil engineering for better. Civil engineering sector, infrastructure sector hasn't really changed in past 20 years. 1% increase in productivity, 40% emissions, sustainability, huge problem. And what we are bringing is a platform that will help engineers to design and build new things, the geotechnical engineers, and assist in response to natural disasters and responses. We are giving them and moving them from pen, paper, PDFs to integrated digital ways of working and end-to-end workflow through our platform. And we're super excited about it. We started on our journey, but we are looking forward to embedding AI machine learning into their journey as well. So we're super excited, super keen, and yeah, privileged to be here.
Awesome. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Ko Elise taku ingoa. I am the co-founder and COO at Menuade. So what is Menuade? Essentially, we existed firstly to help be an online meal planning and shopping list tool. So solving the what's for dinner daily myth for Kiwis all across Aotearoa. And then what we realised through that as well is we've got this really unique opportunity to help FMCG brands, so fast-moving consumer goods, another startup buzzword, but essentially brands that you see on supermarket shelves. So we've realised that we can help them understand what consumers are doing when they get it home, when they get the food home, what's on the dinner table, what are their behaviours that are leading to these decisions, and then how can they understand branding more, understand MPD. There's a whole wealth of opportunity there that we can help brands with. So we're sort of two-end. We help Kiwis with the what's for dinner problem, and then we also help the brands as well understand more about them. So yeah, that's me.
And hey guys, I'm Jared, founder of Blink. It's the largest digital business card app in the world. It's the easiest way to share contact details from a QR code on your phone or your watch. And we're on a mission to maximize the collective value of human relationships, starting with the first impression.
Awesome. So let's jump into problems. Jared, are you happy to kick us off?
Sure. Cool. So John, so we currently have 30 employees right now, and we're scaling to about 100. What's some of the biggest lessons that you've experienced, growing from 30 to 100, or you've seen other founders kind of face?
Good question. By the way, congrats on the awesome growth rates. Actually, 30 to 100 is not as nearly as hard as the 0 to 30 you've already gone through. The 0 to 30 that you're going through is you're setting up the architecture of the firm, the communications architecture. You're creating the culture of the firm, and for that 31st employee, it's like, hey, why don't you do like this other person or these other people are doing, and just do more of it and do it better. So it's really not nearly as difficult for that scaling. The cool thing is that now when you're at 30 employees and the revenue to support that and the scaling, is that you've got a lot more credibility for the kinds of people that you can hire. So where 0 to 30, it may have been your own charisma or people a little bit delusional as to why they joined you, but hey, it turned out it worked out well. The next people are going to be much more confident, and so you'll basically have a broader set of potential employees to choose from, which is awesome. And take advantage of that. Hire the absolute best people you can. Shoot really high. That will pay off because you need those great people when you're soon at 300 or 3,000 people, which sounds like it's not going to be too long from now. So.
Can I ask, push a little on great people and how you defined that, and maybe John, if you can give an example of a great hire who, you thought it was a great hire, who turned out not to be a great hire, and feel free, anyone, jump in if you have something to add to the, not so great hire turns out stories.
At the end of the day, you're hiring somebody to do a job to contribute to and accelerate the growth of the company and the growth of the team, because the team altogether is helping with the growth of the company. And so interviewing or choosing employees, it's really hard. It's super, super hard. I don't think anybody really knows how to do it well. And so you do the extensive interviews and you ask the questions, the situational, and you check the references and such, and still you find somebody who just doesn't quite match. They don't have the cultural fit with your company, or they're not delivering on the expectations that you had. I'll use an example to protect the innocent or protect the guilty, maybe of some other companies that I've observed. One thing, or a role that's super hard to hire for these days is marketing at a technology company. And it's marketing at a technology company with relatively complex technology, and you've got to experiment with messages and how you're delivering the messages and who your actual influencers are and your actual decision makers. And something I've observed, and VCs I've talked to, in Silicon Valley and such, they're seeing the same thing. There's a lot of what I call cargo cult marketing out there. It's like, I'm the marketing person, and I'm going to go to a conference because everybody else is going to conferences. And sort of my response to that is, great, how many leads did you generate? Oh, it's complicated, it's indirect. It's like, well, if we can't measure it, why are we doing it? And so I've worked with companies that have gone through, and I even interviewed some of those people. These will be great VPs of marketing, and once they were in place, they really weren't. They weren't really doing figuring out what the market was and how to most effectively and most inexpensively and scalably go after that market. So yeah, I don't know, it's really hard. I guess of all of that, probably the best thing you can do is check references extensively, as opposed to just sort of the situational interviews or listening to the person themselves saying what they have. If other people have had great experiences with them, hopefully you have a higher probability that you will. Go ahead.
I think as well, Sam, if I could add to John's comment around the marketing people, it's finding people, that have startup experience, so they understand that it's not just coming into a corporate job where there's cookie cutter sort of roles. It's like you need like Thomas, one of our employees, talks always about the T-shaped role, and you come in as one person, but you've kind of got to cover all these other roles. You've got to do guerrilla marketing. You can't just go to conferences and turn up as well.
Yeah, I think kind of the conclusion I've reached is actually the best marketing person when you're have a complex technology or a totally new market is a subject matter expert. If you're selling to developers like we did at Auth0, don't bring in a traditional marketing person, bring in a developer and teach them how to do marketing, because that's a lot easier than teaching a marketing person what the actual sort of emotional influencing messages would be for a developer. So.
And I remember we had a chat about this exact point and how you had so much success with developers and engineers as marketers really early on. And my kind of question back to you is that, well, actually, how do you think about that from a compensation perspective? Because traditionally, the line item for a marketer at an early stage startup is really different to the line item for a really good, security developer, for example. And you had really great advice on that too.
For compensation, if somebody is being super productive and you pay them anything. There's sort of a don't tell the employee that, or they'll ask for everything. I mean, 25 years ago, I was a product manager for a CAD company, and one of our developers, Kobe, one of the architects of the product, really brilliant, super, instrumental in the success we were having, and that product grew to completely dominate its, couple of $100 million market niche, and so Kobe, the developer, asks his boss for a new laptop, and the boss goes to our VP and says, hey, Kobe wants a new laptop, but it's only been 18 months, and we've got the 3-year policy. And the boss looked at him and said, if Kobe wants a flippin' pony, buy him a pony. Anything to keep him happy, because he's so instrumental in making it successful. So when you find that gem of a marketing person or developer or any other employee, don't be chintzy on the compensation. You need them to drive your growth.
I think you got 2 for 1 there in terms of problems solved. Should we move on to Elise or Rekha? Do you want to jump in with a problem?
Yeah.
Sure. John, culture is a big thrust for our product velocity. We are solving real-world problem, and our team is really, really motivated around that. We're forming that, it started with the founder's vision, but now it's like community of vision that we are forming across in our team. They're so passionate about it. As we grow, how do we preserve that culture, that spirit, heart, and soul of our company?
Excellent question. I can tell you how not to do it. Don't outsource it like I tried to do. I made the mistake of bringing in somebody, a VP of HR, and specifically in her ambit was, hey, you're going to help with the culture and preserve it, and so. She was, employee 200 or 250 or something like that, and she didn't really understand the culture because she was new to it. The founding team and the senior management team are the culture. You guys need to model what the culture should be, both in what you say and how you act, and the policies that you implement within the company. That's the way to preserve the culture, is through example. Again, as you grow, that can be hard. and maybe when you bring in, because as you're growing, you need more help. You bring in that VP of HR or something. It's like, help me measure whether we're doing a good job of replicating the culture as new employees are coming in. But don't make them responsible for the culture, because they won't know how to do it nearly as well as you and the rest of your founding team and your senior management team. So.
Would you look to bring someone into the team to help with that, or just don't do it?
Once you have successful motions for how to communicate that culture, having somebody who helps with the logistics and the measurement of those successful motions, that's great. but you can't look to somebody to, hey, your job is to preserve our culture, let me know how it goes. Again, that's, the culture is the founders and how you behave. I mean, I'll give you an example of something that we did at Auth0 that was super successful, which is part of our culture is everybody's an adult. Okay, so we trust you implicitly, do the right thing because you're really smart, and adults do the right things. And so we would communicate that on a regular basis. We had policy actions like we have radical transparency here. Everybody has all information because you're all adults. You know how to treat that information, confidential information, properly. So by the way, here's the board memo along with all the board members' comments from the board meeting yesterday. Oh, and we'll have a company meeting if you guys want to ask any questions about it. Or an expense policy the expense policy is, it's an unlimited expense policy. If you think this expense is justified, you're an adult. You should, spend the money. Of course, we'd then say it has to pass the red face test, which is not you have to justify to your boss why you're buying a new laptop this week when you just bought one last week. You have to justify to your colleague who's in the same role as you as to why you needed to buy that laptop or fly first class to London or whatever. If you can do that without turning red in the face to your colleague, then it was probably the right thing to do because there was some good customer or other reason. If you can't, don't do it. That wouldn't be the adult thing to do. That works great, actually. 99% of the time. And so then you tell your finance people, by the way, look for anomalies in expense reports, which is another thing. As part of treating people like adults is you don't say, you shall do this. Say, here's the general guidelines, do the right things. And then if you see exceptions, you say, hey, what's going on here? Please explain why this is adult behavior.
I'm wondering, I mean, this comes up a lot, right, with startups. It's like, questions around culture, preserving culture, et cetera. And it always comes up at a similar-ish time. And there's something always behind it. And I'm wondering, it's like, I'll just come out and say it. It's like, it feels like doing the work on culture doesn't feel like real work for founders, right? Shipping product is real work. Talking to customers is real work. Making sales is real work. But this other abstract thing that we have to do around setting and building culture, it doesn't feel like real work. But I think what we're hearing here is that almost at a certain point, that is the only work, in a way, of the founder.
So to that end, one of the other policy messages that communicate regularly with the team is, your job at Auth0 is to bring joy at every customer touch point with Auth0. You're building a product. That product needs to bring joy. You're in customer success. That interaction with the customer needs to bring joy. You're in finance doing, billing somebody. Have a nice design, be professional, be efficient. And so a culture that is oriented towards bringing joy to your customers is pretty key to the success of the company. If you're focused instead of, look at this great technology I have, and yeah, this person over here, the salesperson's kind of toxic, but that's okay. We've got a great product. Bringing joy through culture, and that's happens through culture, is really critical to success. It really is. Almost is job number one of the CEO.
There's a really great book by Danny Meyer, and he talks the restaurateur, like the Shake Shack restaurateur, and he talks about this thing called hospitality mindset, which is kind of one of the principles we've adopted. It's the idea that in order to give great hospitality, great service, you first have to give it to your colleagues. So yeah, if anyone needs to read up on that, definitely recommend that book. Elise, shall we move on to you?
Yeah, sure. So for a bit of context, Minuaid's second birthday is tomorrow, so we're...
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Everybody now, we're going to sing happy birthday.
But yeah, so we have, it started off on a journey with myself and my fiance Toby as the founders of Minuaid, and we've sort of been growing it ever since, and we've been fortunate enough to now have an epic team of, we've got 10 full-time staff and 5 contractors that work for us as well. And I think the trouble that I'm coming into now is the balance of spending time, and Tim touched on it earlier this morning as well, like spending time in the business, so talking to customers, having that really like helping people make decisions and things like that, versus spending time on the business, high-level strategy, culture, like all of that sort of thing, and finding the uninterrupted time to be able to really get into those nitty-gritty pieces. So I guess my question is, as your role as a founder evolves, like how do you juggle that, and any tools you've got or tips with that is much appreciated.
Yeah, that's a difficult conundrum. I guess maybe the right framing would be, think of the time you spend in the business as you're gathering data and to inform how you're going to be spending time on the business to help it to scale. So there's a great HBR article called The Sales Learning Curve that came out like 20 years ago, where I forget the author's name, but he was making the point of don't create a sales team until you actually understand the selling motion for your particular technology or whatever you're selling. Because you might build a big relationship sales team and find out that inside sales or PLG style self-service sales is best. And similarly, when you're thinking of spending time on the business, you don't want to we're going to be like this, so let's build towards that. You're going to be in the business to understand what the motions are, and then figure out how you can delegate those effective motions to your staff as you're building the company. That's maybe the best way to think of it. Your number one job as CEO of a fast-growing company is to figure out how to obsolete yourself for all the things you're doing right now, because you need to clear the decks for all the new stuff that's going to happen next month and next year. Because scaling by itself brings all sorts of new, not problems, opportunities that you got to be prepared for. And if you're in the business and dealing very tactically, you can't scale effectively. So.
Awesome, thank you.
I wanted to ask a question that hopefully will resonate with everybody, which is that once you've got your first couple of customers, you then need to, as you pointed out, learn how to scale that traction. And one thing that some of our most successful companies have done is kind of identify, and this is, I guess, more relevant to inside sales companies, but identify a sort of insertion point where there's urgency around a sale, like someone needs to make a particular sale. And to do that, you need to look for signals that might be happening. So for example, new job title change on LinkedIn, ping, great, I'm going to go in and sell to that new chief people officer or that new CMO, etc. Wondering what the right balance is, because it's not, in the case of Eureka, right, natural disaster. I'm sure in security world, authentication, what's the right balance, to the extent that anyone can comment on it, of not wanting to appear like an ambulance chaser, but like seizing the moment when a potential lead is primed for trying your product.
I kind of call that, try to figure out what the propensity to buy is. And you can look at a lot of the metadata of the company, like you're saying, job title changes, or there's a cyber attack or whatever, that may give you signals that there may be a higher or lower propensity to buy. But other than making sure that your prospect has all the information they need, and continue to have a good experience as each time they've got a touch point with you, it's really hard. Because the internal politics which are driving that buying decision are going to be pretty opaque to you. You don't really know when some VP's looking for a promotion and therefore is going to push it through, or that VP's enemy is going to try and sabotage you. So all you can do is sort of offer the most compelling reason to buy, and then sort of sit back a little bit and see if that provides the ammunition you need for your champions in the company to push the purchase through.
So what's your advice then when you're sort of in that state of like, I don't know what's going on what are the machinations in the company? I've tried to find them out, and you don't have answers. Just sit back and wait, or?
So, unfortunately, yes. I mean, this is why the real solution is you have a big pipeline, because everything's a pipeline, and that deal you were certain was going to close this month drags out another 6 months. You have a pipeline, so you've got other deals you fall back on that do close, so you can hopefully make your projections. In the absence of that, because you're a young company and your pipeline is 3 companies or something like that, all you can do is try to have as strong a relationship as you can with your champions inside the company, and try to figure out actually how good the information they're giving you about the the buying cycle is and try and triangulate to see, is this really an 80% certainty of this deal closing this month, or maybe not? It's really, really hard. I'm actually sort of not a fan of demanding projections for companies under, pick a number, $10, $15 million in revenue, because you just don't have enough of a track record for knowing how to interpret the signals for the purchase of your product. Because the signals that somebody's applying from their last job, that maybe that doesn't apply to your product. It's hard. So.
I think, as I've worked as a client as well in big government organizations, and it's not easy, when things are upon you, there's bad press going on, that you're not responding to all these natural disasters and other things as well. So what I found it beneficial is that when people don't come in to sell me something, but actually be a trusted advisor to help me with my problem, and that has really helped me sometimes shift towards buying that and going for that solution and those relationships. And I keep saying, I think investing in human relationships is really, really important at every part of whatever you're doing, and those relationships help in terms of even converting into sales. You can be at a point where it could be a tailwind for your business, and it's kind of proving some aspect for us as well.
Yeah, having that role as the trusted advisor, even when they're not ready to buy, is a super powerful role, because eventually things will roll around, so they do have the budget and there is the interest, and now you're number one on the list because you're the one that's helped them all these all these months or years. One of the sort of self-service ways we did that at Auth0, we published tools, and probably the most popular tool was a website called jwt.io for decoding and encoding JSON web tokens. And so it's a really useful tool to developers. Many of them didn't even realize it was ours until using it for a few months and then noticing at the bottom a small Auth0 logo as the sponsor. Little things like that of, look what we're doing to help you in your everyday job be more successful. We're trying to make you a hero. That's super powerful when finally all the stars line up that they've got the budget and are ready to make a buying decision.
I totally agree as well, Sam, because that way if you make the person using it an absolute champion, then they're far, like, New Zealand's a really small place, marketers know marketers, developers know developers. Like, as soon as you solve a really awesome problem for one person and you do it really well, arm them with everything that they need, then they'll become the salespeople for you as well. And in times of crisis, they'll be saying, like, what tools do I need to be using to their friends as well? And that's an awesome growth opportunity too.
Absolutely. Everybody loves helping out their friends with a good recommendation. And so if you can be who they recommend, there's almost no more powerful marketing than that, the recommendation by the trusted friend. It's awesome if you can, through your quality of your product and your market communication, your content marketing, you can accomplish that.
Jon, you're known for sort of PLG and taking PLG to an industry where it's not necessarily intuitive, right? Cybersecurity. Could we maybe sort of riff a little bit on this? Because this is something like all startup founders kind of want to do PLG. It's the hot, sexy thing, right? Maybe talk through, maybe you too, Jared, how you started, why you started, companies it's not suited for.
Actually, Jared, why you guys have been scaled really quickly with the PLG motion. Yeah. Why? Why'd you do PLG?
I just thought it was cheaper than getting salespeople.
Yes.
Our product is a very viral product where every single time you use the product, you share the product with people. And so we just found that if we focus on building the best tech, we can probably focus on really good star ratings, like 4.9 out of 5 on the App Store is kind of what we have. If we focus on that, we'll get more people to share the product and talk about the product a bit more. So it was actually just cheaper than selling it to people, I guess.
So actually, that's why we started doing it at Auth0. So we had a product that was amenable to self-service and some configurations. If you're really deploying it at Atlassian, which became a big customer a couple of years into the life of the product, you needed a lot of help, like you would for any complex enterprise infrastructure component. But you could start and get a good feel for it and actually get some good utility self-service. So that was great. We were trying to figure out how complete our product was. So our PLG motion initially was product management data gathering. Is this good? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you want more features? Do you not like this feature? How does this work? And we tried So it was initially actually sort of completely free. It's like, hey, just try it out. And then we tried charging on the theory that if somebody pays a nickel, that's a pretty strong signal that you've got something quality as opposed to them paying zero. And people were willing to pay for it. And for the first quarter, I don't know, maybe 6 months, it's like, okay, we're going to be a $100 million company by having, $100 a month individual signups, swiping your credit card, and having whatever that would be, a million of those. And then, much to our surprise, we started getting these enterprises coming in offering us, 6-digit and before long 7-digit annual subscriptions. And we realized what we were really doing with our self-service with PLG is we were generating we were allowing prospects to self-qualify as enterprise buyers of our expensive enterprise subscription. And better yet, they were paying us to self-qualify. So our customer acquisition cost was actually pretty low because we didn't have to engage with a customer until they'd essentially self-qualified by using the product and said, yeah, this is great, but now I need to see if you can work with, XYZ, my weird COBOL database on an IBM mainframe from 1970 or whatever it was. And so that was a super powerful selling motion, but it all started, well, kind of, I'll paraphrase, don't take this the wrong way, because we were lazy. It's like, well, let me just see if somebody likes this so we can sort of get some, understand the right direction to go in. And as we experimented with it, we realized what a powerful lead generation tool it was for us to feed leads into our enterprise sales force.
Did you guys start off with enterprise customers, or did you guys kind of grow to become, a tool for them?
Oh, we grew to become tool with them. The thing is, if you're a critical part of the enterprise infrastructure, it's really hard to go in and say, hey, let's wipe out everything you've got now and replace it with this, software from this little startup in Seattle. What could go wrong? And so everything's incremental because your corporate buyer is always looking for how they can incrementally evaluate the risk so that if it goes wrong at any point, they can kind of back out with sort of the minimum of embarrassment. And so you're always going to start with, or for us, it was always you'd start with individuals. They'd say, let me just try this out, just see, it's working well for this hobby project at home or for the little project we've got on the side with me and a couple of colleagues we're playing with. But, so, hey, maybe this will work for, this new project that's actually going to be servicing, 100,000 customers. And that's pick a number, that's a $20,000 or $50,000 a year deal because we were then usage-based. And if that's successful, then the company says, this is working great for these little projects. Let's re-platform the whole company and talk about the $2 million deal. And so the way I always like to think about it is how are you titrating the risk that the corporate buyer is perceiving in the way that's sort of the most amenable to them so that it minimizes their potential embarrassment, I guess I'll say, if they're wrong or if you screw up.
And then, okay, so yeah, you kind of started off as small, then you became enterprise. How did you keep the culture still this product-led growth culture as you started to hire these enterprise sales folks as well?
Excellent question. And we actually had reasonable resistance from the enterprise sales team as we were growing it, because it's like, well, self-service, I lose account control. And once we were able to sort of make clear, you're not losing account control, you're getting a more qualified lead to pursue through PLG. And, frankly, enterprise salesperson, your commission on a $1,000 a month customer, do you really care about that? Yeah. I mean, that's not going to move the needle. And so once they realized that they were getting leads that were much better qualified, much more likely to buy, and therefore they could, were much more likely to make their revenue target for the year, they were pretty enthusiastic about it. But they need to understand that it's not. This is a competition for you selling it. This is a way to get a better qualified lead for you to have more successful and quicker sales. Yeah. So.
How do you manage the tension between what the PLG customers want in terms of features or performance or whatever, and then what your enterprise salespeople are telling you that you need to build in order to close XYZ account, in order for them to get paid their commission, la 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 la?
So our secret weapon for always being able to say yes to the crazy enterprise requirement that they somebody would come up with. So we had a feature we called initially Auth0 rules that I think now we call Auth0 actions, which was a serverless function, was actually sort of a full Turing machine, a computer that I could send. I could make a call out during the authentication transaction with all the metadata of the transaction to make decisions on, or to enrich the data there, or whatever. And so you could essentially write any new feature that you wanted in an Auth0 rules, let's call it a virtual machine, serverless function. Okay, super powerful. Customer would come in with a crazy, I need to do this on odd Tuesdays because of GDPR, but only when the moon is nearly full. And somebody like a Ping or a Microsoft would say, oh yeah, we can do that. That's only a 90-day professional services engagement for $250,000. And like, we'd have our customer success engineers or show the customer themselves how to write it in an afternoon. They're like, oh, awesome. I was in a really fun sales meeting with actually a U.S. government prospect where they were asking for something crazy based on like GPS location. And while I was explaining that we had this cool, we can do anything for you, Eugenio was in the room and he's like typing away. And after I finally sit down and shut up, spending 5 minutes to say yes, he says, and here it is, and to like deliver the new feature on the fly, which blew them away. So back to this, a product management feature.
Build everything is what I'm hearing now.
Yeah. A product management feature, an architectural feature that's super valuable for any enterprise software is really clean and powerful extensibility, so you can easily write in user land the new feature that enterprise customer wants, and not distract for the core engineering team by having them write it because they need to write the feature for you to win that $1 million deal. It now also reduces technical debt because you can leave it running in user land forever. Or if more than one customer wants this feature, then it gets on the core engineering team's list to do in 9 months or 12 months or something like that. Technical debt is a big killer of scalability. I've seen a lot of companies that grow, and this happens at 100 employees, 150. You've got sort of 2 or 3 years of patches and workarounds to deliver features to your enterprise customers, and suddenly it becomes completely unwieldy, and you have to stop everything, re-architect the product, and spend a year and a half doing that before you can scale further, and that kills a lot of momentum. So having this super clean extensibility capability was a massive secret weapon for Auth0, and would be a massive secret weapon for anybody else who has it. For having an architecture that can continue to scale as you get your picky enterprise customers asking for crazy new features.
Is it just pattern recognition, knowing when it's not too early and not too late to do that?
It is, if you don't have it now, you're too late. It's actually something that's important to put in as early as possible, so that it's as clean and powerful an implementation as possible. If you say, I'll do that in a couple of years, I don't need it now, because the engineering team, we're smart engineers, we can write we can write the 100 lines of code we need in a day, it'll be fine. You'll never get around to it because you don't have the time to do it right, because it will be a sort of a big architectural change. You really need to start as early as possible.
We only have a few minutes left. I wanted to maybe switch track a little bit, and you've exited 2 companies very successfully. Can you just talk a little bit about the road to M&A and like how it appeared? Did you chase it? Advice for founders going through it for the first time?
Sure. I've exited the 2 companies, and I was in corp dev at Microsoft for a while, buying and selling companies from Microsoft. I would, in general, you're better off not chasing M&A. Companies are bought, not sold. Okay, you'll chase it when you sort of have to, because you can't get your next round done or something like that. And you need to find an exit, but that's generally hard. The thing to be doing now is every time you get an outreach from a potential acquirer, take the meeting, be polite, say we're really not for sale, but happy to talk. As you as CEO should have a list of potential acquirers, and very specifically the decision makers for that acquisition at that company, and you need to get friendly with them and start demonstrating to them that your technology and you as a leader, potential member of their staff, and that your company would be a great addition to Microsoft or Google's or Facebook or whoever's team. And so you really want to have been doing a lot of groundwork to create the atmosphere so that when you do have to pull the trigger for an acquisition, either because you're running out of money or suddenly you've got a good offer on the table and you want to make it competitive and get other acquirers or whatever your reason is, so that you're not an unknown quantity. I can't think of a single sort of unknown quantity that came into, across my desk at Microsoft where it's like, hey, we just got an offer from Google, but, love to talk with you. And it's like, have we ever heard of these people? No. It's like, thanks, goodbye. It very, very rarely would work. So.
Thank you. Everybody, we're out of time, but thank you so much, Rekha, Elise, Jon, and Jared, for coming up here, sharing so honestly problems in your startup, and hopefully everybody got a takeaway that they can take to their businesses. So round of applause, please. Thank you.